Ludlow is a market town in Shropshire, England, 28 miles south of Shrewsbury and 23 miles north of Hereford via the main A49 road, which bypasses the town. With a population of approximately 11,000, Ludlow is the largest town in South Shropshire. The town is significant in the history of the Welsh Marches and neighbouring Wales. The town is near the confluence of the rivers Corve and Teme. The oldest part is the medieval walled town, founded in the late 11th century after the Norman conquest of England. It is centred on a small hill which lies on the eastern bank of a bend of the River Teme. Atop this hill is Ludlow Castle and the parish church, St. Lawrence's, the largest in the county. Further the streets slope downward to the River Teme, and northward toward the River Corve. The town is in a sheltered spot beneath Mortimer Forest and the Clee Hills, which are clearly visible from the town. Ludlow has nearly 500 listed buildings. There include some fine examples of medieval and Tudor-style half-timbered buildings, including the Feathers Hotel. The town was described by Sir John Betjeman as probably the loveliest town in England. Toponymy. The place name, Ludlow, was in use for this site before 1138 and comes from the Old English HLUD/HLAW. At the time this section of the River Teme contained rapids, and so the HLUD of Ludlow came from the loud waters, while HLAW meant hill or tumulus. Thus the name Ludlow describes a place on a hill by the loud waters. Sometime around the 12th century weirs were added along the river, taming these rapid flows. The hill is that which the town stands on, and a prehistoric burial mound which existed at the summit of the hill could explain the tumulus variation of the HLAW element. Ludford, a neighbouring and older settlement, situated on the southern bank of the Teme, shares the HLUD element. Ludlow has a Welsh translation, Ludlow, Dinham, though the town became known as Ludlow. Folklore Fitzwarren states that it was called Dinham for a very long time. The western part of the town immediately south of the castle retains this name, and many historians have assumed this settlement as Anglian or Saxon in origin, with its etymology meaning a settlement by the fort. The castle was originally called Dinham Castle, before it took on the name of Ludlow. A possible alternative is that Dinham takes its name from Jos-de-Dinnan, a major landowner in the area in the 12th century, though this is regarded as erroneous on the balance of evidence, with the similarity being a coincidence. History. The town is situated close to Wales, and lies near the midpoint of the 257 kilometres long England-Wales border. It is also very close to the county border between Shropshire and Herefordshire. This strategic location invested it with national importance in medieval times, and thereafter, with the town being the seat of the Council of Wales and the Marches during its existence. Medieval history. At the time of the Domesday Book survey, the area was part of the large Stanton parish and manor, a possession of Walter de Lacy. Neither Ludlow nor Dinham are mentioned in the book, compiled in 1086, although the book recorded manors and not settlements per se. The book does record a great number of households and taxable value for Stanton, perhaps suggesting that any early settlement by the nascent castle was being counted. Neighbouring places. Ludford, the Sheet and Stempton a feature in the book, as they were manors, proving that they were well-established places by the Norman conquest. The manor of Stanton came within the hundred of Culverston, but during the reign of Henry I this Saxon hundred was merged into the new Munslow hundred. Walter's son Roger de Lacy began the construction of Ludlow Castle on the crest of the hill about 1075, forming what is now the Inner Bailey. Between about 1090 and 1120, the chapel of St. Mary Magdalene was built inside the walls, and by 1130 the Great Tower was added to form the gatehouse. About 1170 the larger Outer Bailey was added to the castle. The settlement of Dinham grew grew up alongside the development of the early castle in the late 11th century, with the northern part of this early settlement disturbed by the building of the Outer Bailey. Dinham had its own place of worship, the Chapel of St. Thomas the Martyr, dedicated to Thomas Becket sometime in 1177 to 1189, when the present chapel replaced an older church building. During the 12th century, the planned town of Ludlow was formed in stages, the town providing a useful source of income for successive marcher lords. Based on rents, fines, and tolls, they developed the town on a regular grid pattern, although this was adapted somewhat to match the local topography. For the late 11th century through the 12th century, the first laid street was along the ridge of the hilltop, what is now Castle Square, High Street and King Street. This formed a wide marketplace running from the castle gates east across to St. Lawrence's and the Bull Ring, itself located on the ancient north-south road, now called Corve Street to the north and Old Street to the south. The wide Mill and Broad Streets were added later as part of a southern grid plan of streets and burgage plots filling the area bounded by Dinham. The new High Street Market, Old Street and the Teme to the south. Originally, Old Street ran down to a ford which took the ancient route south across to Ludford. A bridge was constructed at the foot of Broad Street, upstream of the ford, which then replaced the ford. Its 15th century replacement is the present-day Ludford Bridge. St. Lawrence's Church, whose origins are late 11th century, was rebuilt and enlarged in 1199 to 1200 and became a parish church, with the separation of Ludlow from the parish of Stanton Lacey by 1200. The town notably had two schools in existence circa 1200. Ludlow Grammar School remained in existence until 1977, when it became Ludlow College. Ludlow Castle was an important border fortification along the Welsh Marches, and one of the largest in the Norman-English ring of castles surrounding Wales. It played a significant role in local, regional and national conflicts such as the Owain Glyndŵr Rebellion, the Wars of the Roses and the English Civil War. The castle and its adjoining town grew in political importance, and in the 15th century the castle became the seat of the Council of Wales and the Marches. It was a temporary home to several holders of the title Prince of Wales, including King Edward IV and Arthur Tudor, who died there in 1502. The site features heavily in the folk story of Fulk Fitzwarren, outlawed Lord of Whittington, Shropshire, and a possible inspiration for the Robin Hood legend. Fulk is brought up in the castle of Joss-de-Dinan, and fights for his master against Sir Gilbert de Lacy. These battles are the source of the story of Marion de la Brière, the betrayed lover whose ghost is still said to be heard crying, "Goodbye, cruel world," as she plummets from the castle's turrets. The first recorded royal permission to maintain defensive town walls was given to the men of Ludlow in the patent rolls of 1233. The entry is, however, incomplete and atypical and was not renewed in the usual way. A Mirage grant was next made in 1260 and renewed regularly over the next 2 centuries. This time the grant was made by name to Geoffrey de Geneva, Lord of Ludlow. For this and other surviving documents it seems that the town walls and gates were in place by 1270. They were constructed about the central part of the community with 4 main gates and 3 postern gates, because the walls were constructed after the development of the town's streets. The positions and names of the 4 main gates are based on the streets they crossed. The postern gates, on the other hand, are located by named after old outlying districts. The seven gates are Linney, Corve, Goldfoot, Old, Broad, Mill and Dinham. An eighth unnamed portal gate existed in the wall just to the northwest of the castle, now in the gardens of Castle Walk House. The town walls are largely still in existence, although a section alongside the churchyard of St. Lawrence's is, as of 2015, in need of repairs. The castle complex continued to expand and it gained a reputation as a fortified palace. In 1306 it passed through marriage to the ambitious Earl of March, Roger Mortimer, 1st Earl of March. Queen Isabella and her son, the young Edward III, were entertained at the castle in 1328. Marchetown. The town prospered, with a population of about 1,725 by 1377, and sustained a population of about 2,000 for several centuries thereafter. It was a market town. Market day was held on every Thursday throughout the 15th century. In particular, it served as a centre for the sale of wool and cloth. It was home to various trades, and in 1372 boasted 12 trade guilds including metal workers, shoemakers, butchers, drapers, mercers, tailors, cooks, bakers, and probably the most notable in the town, the Palmers' Guild. There were merchants of moderate wealth in the town, and especially wool merchants, such as Lawrence of Ludlow, who lived at nearby Stoke-Say Castle. The collection and sale of wool and the manufacture of cloth continued to be the primary source of wealth until the 17th century. Drovers' roads from Wales led to the town. This prosperity is expressed in stone masonry, wood carvings and stained glass at St. Lawrence's parish church, effectively a wool church. It is the largest in Shropshire and a member of the Greater Churches group. Despite the presence of some decorated work, it is largely perpendicular in style. Its size and grandeur has given it the nickname, the Cathedral of the Marches, and since 1981 there has been a Bishop of Ludlow, a suffragan bishop. During the Wars of the Roses, Richard, Duke of York, seized the castle and turned it into one of his main strongholds. The Lancastrian forces captured Ludlow in 1459 at the Battle of Ludford Bridge, but the Yorkists won control of England in 1461. The castle became property of the Crown, passing to Richard's son, Edward IV. The town rose in prominence under Edward's reign and was incorporated as a borough, and began sending representatives to Parliament. Edward set up the Council of Wales and the Marches in 1472, headquartering it at Ludlow, and sent his son Edward, Prince of Wales, to live there. As nominal head of the council, it was at Ludlow that the young prince heard the news of his father's death in 1483 and was himself proclaimed King Edward V of England. Under Henry VII, the castle continued as the headquarters of the Council of Wales and served as the administration centre for Wales and the counties along the border, known as the Welsh Marches. During this period, when the town served as the effective capital of Wales, it was home to many messengers of the king, various clerks and lawyers for settling legal disputes. The town also provided a winter home for local gentry, during which time they attended the council court sessions. Henry VII sent his heir Prince Arthur to Ludlow, where he was joined briefly by his wife Catherine of Aragon, later to become wife to Henry VIII, who was living in the castle lodge at the time. Ludlow Castle was therefore the site of perhaps the most controversial wedding night in English history, when Catherine's claim that the marriage was never consummated became central to the dispute concerning Henry VIII and Catherine's annulment in 1531. After 1610, the cloth industry declined, but the wealth of the town was little affected until about 1640, when the activities of the council were suspended and the town's population promptly fell by 20%. Eventually, the council resumed, and except for brief interludes, Ludlow continued to host the council until 1689, when it was abolished by William and Mary as part of the Glorious Revolution. The castle then fell into decay. The structure was poorly maintained and stone was pillaged. In 1772 demolition was mooted, but it was instead decided to lease the buildings. Later still it was purchased by the Earl of Powys, and together he and his wife directed the transformation of the castle grounds. The Royal Welsh Fusiliers were formed by Lord Henry Herbert at Ludlow in March 1689 to oppose James II and to take part in the imminent war with France. The regiment continued to have ties with the town of Ludlow, and its successor battalion in the Royal Welsh Regiment was granted the freedom of the town in 2014. 18th and 19th centuries. From 1760, the population began to undergo a significant expansion. New structures were built along the outskirts that would become slums in the 19th century and later torn down. The town contained several coaching inns, public houses and ale houses, leading to court records of some alcohol-induced violence and a certain reputation for excess. Several coaching inns were constructed to accommodate travellers by stagecoach and mail coach. The Angel on Broad Street was one such notable coaching inn, where several passenger and mail coaches departed and arrived on a regular basis every week, including the Aurora coach which departed for London. The Angel was the last coaching inn in Ludlow to have such coach traffic, following the arrival of the railways in 1852. The Angel ceased trading in the early 1990s. A surviving medieval coaching inn today is the 15th-century Bull Hotel on the Bull Ring. Several other pubs and hotels in the town have historic pedigree, including the Rose and Crown, where allegedly a pub has existed since 1102. In 1802, Horatio Nelson was awarded the freedom of the borough and stayed at the Angel coaching inn on Broad Street, together with his mistress Emma and her husband Sir William Hamilton. The honour was presented to him in a room at the inn, later to be known as the Nelson Room, and he addressed the crowds from one of the bay windows on the first floor. During the Napoleonic Wars, Lucien Bonaparte, younger brother of the French Emperor, and his family were imprisoned at Dinham House in 1811. In 1832, Dr. Thomas Lloyd, the Ludlow doctor and amateur geologist, met Roderick Murchison at Ludford Corner to study the rocks exposed along the River Teme and on Wycliffe, advancing Murchison's theory for a Silurian system that he was to publish in 1839. Immediately above the topmost layer of the marine rock sequence, forming Murchison's Silurian system, was a thin layer of dark sand containing numerous remains of early fish, especially the scales, along with plant debris, spores and microscopic mites, in contrast to the underlying sediments of the Ludlow series, which were deposited in a shallow warm sea some 400 million years ago. The Ludlow bone bed represents terrestrial conditions and thus a fundamental change in the landscape. At the time, this was believed to be the earliest occurrence of life on land. Murchison thus took the Ludlow bone bed as the base of his Devonian system. Although over a century later this boundary was to be moved a little higher, the overlying rocks being ascribed to the Pridoli. The science of geology has taken a number of local names from these studies and now applies them worldwide, in recognition of the importance of this area to scientific understanding. For example, Ludlow series. The site is now on SSSI and still attracts international studies. The geological interval of time, the Ludlow epoch, is named after the town. Recent history. By the late 20th century, the town had seen a growth in tourism, leading to the appearance of many antique dealers, as well as art dealers and independent bookshops. A long battle of words between local activists and Tesco was eventually solved when the mega retailer obtained planning permission to build a supermarket on Corve Street. on the northern edge of the town centre, but only after agreeing to conform to the architectural demands of the local council. The building is designed to follow the shape of the old town plans with a curving roof. Burdinham's, a clothing retailer, has been trading from a 600-year-old timbered building since 1860 and is one of the oldest stores in Britain. In 2004, the council was granted funding from Advantage West Midlands to build a new eco-park on the outskirts of the town on the other side of the A49 bypass. At the sheet, with space for traditional handcraft businesses, new environmentally friendly office buildings and a park and ride facility. More construction work began in 2006 on the same section of bypass on a much-debated pasture land on the town's fringe known as the Fold Gate. The land has now been turned over to commercial use with a petrol filling station, Travelodge hotel and pub chain restaurant, opened in late 2008. The previous plans to include a number of high street stores was thrown out when an independent official branded it damaging to and out of place with the character of the old town. Ludlow was described by Country Life as the most vibrant small town in England. Geography. The medieval settlement, which grew as a planned town located by the Norman castle, is largely on the top of a hill, with the castle, market and parish church situated along the flat land on this hilltop, which has a maximum elevation of 107 metres on College Street. The streets then run down to the rivers Teme and Corve to the north and south. The surface of the Teme has an approximate elevation of 76 metres as it passes Ludford Bridge. To the west is Dinham, which retains the character of a village, though dominated by the castle, with a road leading steeply down from Castle Square to the Teme and then over Dinham Bridge. The old chapel in Dinham, a Grade II * listed building, though no longer used for worship, features the oldest built structure in Ludlow outside the castle. To the east a rolling landscape exists, and it is in this direction that the town has steadily grown. East Hamlet was the name of the settlement to the east of the town. The growth of the town in this eastwards direction continues to the present day, with little or no development, especially to the south-west, to an extent that the traditional town centre is actually in the southwest corner of the entire settlement. It has also meant that the village of Ludford, immediately on the other side of the Teme at Ludford Bridge, remains a distinct community. The historic centre of Ludlow has largely escaped development that would otherwise alter its medieval, Tudor and Georgian character. Furthermore, the lack of development to the south and west allows for the town's historic setting by the Teme and the neighbouring countryside to be readily appreciated in the modern day. M.R.G. Conson remarked of Ludlow, its composite medieval town plan and a history of 8.5 centuries with several periods of considerable importance have endowed its old town with an historically well stratified and richly textured landscape. Michael Raven, who created a detailed gazetteer of all the settlements of Herefordshire and Shropshire in the late 20th century, stated that there can be little doubt that Ludlow is the finest town in Shropshire. The medieval street plan remains, though the town walls and gates have disappeared in many places. Mill Street and Broad Street, leading down from the very centre to the Teme in the south, are particularly famous for the rich architectural heritage and vistas, with many fine Georgian buildings. Sir Nicolaus Pevsner described Broad Street as one of the most memorable streets in England. Localities in the town's suburbs include Gallows Bank and Sand Pence. Immediately beyond the A49 bypass are Rocks Green and the Sheet, and it is in these two places that much of the present development and growth of the town is taking place. They are both approximately 1 mile from the town centre. Ludlow was winner of the Great Town Award from the Academy of Urbanism in 2006. the first episode of the BBC television series Town, in which geographer Nicholas Crane examines the great towns of the United Kingdom, focused solely on Ludlow for the hour-long documentary. Ludlow also was one of the 6 English towns in the 1977 television programme by architectural historian Alec Clifton-Taylor. Population. The 2011 UK census recorded 10,266 people living in Ludlow's civil parish. A further 673 live in the neighbouring Ludford parish, meaning the population for the town and adjoining settlements is approximately 11,000. Historical. In 1377, poll tax was levied against 1,172 of the parish's residents. By this measure, Ludlow was the 35th most populous town in England. Transport. On the 4th of February 1980, the £4.7 million single carriageway bypass road was officially opened by Kenneth Clark. The bypass had been built to the east of Ludlow in the late 1970s and diverts the A49 trunk road around the town. The former route of the A49 through the town was reclassified as the B4361. The town centre retains its medieval streets and has had long-running problems with motor traffic and car parking, which is now restricted 7 days a week. There is a town centre residence parking permit scheme in operation. Council-owned car parks exist in a number of locations in Ludlow to cater for much of the long-stay car parking. The Eco Park, situated on the eastern outskirts of the town, at the sheet and adjacent to the A49, includes a new park and amp ride facility, with a frequent bus service to and from the town centre. The A4117 begins at the Rocks Green roundabout on the Ludlow bypass, and runs across the Clee Hills to Bleabury Mortimer and then via the A456 onwards to Bewdley and Kidderminster. 2 historic bridges cross the River Teme at Ludlow, Ludford Bridge and Dinham Bridge, both of which still take vehicular traffic as no modern bridges have been built over the Teme in the area. To the north of the town centre, the historic Corve Bridge crosses the River Corve, and this bridge was relieved by Burway Bridge in the mid-20th century. However, on the 26th of June 2007, dramatic flooding on the Corve caused the Burway Bridge to collapse, severing a gas main and causing 20 homes in nearby Corve Street to be evacuated. The old stone bridge has now been replaced with a modern steel and prefabricated concrete construction. Cycling. National Cycle Network Route 44 runs over Dinham and Ludford bridges en route from Bromfield to Pipe Aston. It is known as the Six Castles Cycleway, with Ludlow Castle as one of the 6. Walking. The Mortimer Trail, a long-distance footpath, runs from Ludlow to Kington, Herefordshire. Railways. Ludlow railway station began serving the town in 1852 and is about 5 minutes' walk from the town centre. It is on the Welsh Marches line. Arriva Trains Wales provide regular services. To the south of the station is a short tunnel, which runs under Gravel Hill. Clee Hill Junction existed just to the north of the station, with a goods line leading off the main line up to the quarries on Tiddeston Clee Hill.